In today's episode, we are going to be moving on to Psalm 23:2, which reads, "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters." So we are going to be covering that verse today and talking about how it applies to our lives as entrepreneurs and how we can meditate on this verse moving forward in our journey in entrepreneurship. Okay, I hope you're ready. I'm excited for today. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Seeking Over Striving. Do you constantly think about how to make more money? Are you uncontent and always searching for more? Do you know you need to slow down and see God in your business, but don't? Hey, I'm Beth, and I too was a Christian entrepreneur trapped in the cycle of boss babe culture. Like you, I felt the pressure of six figures, lived on social media, and hit burnout. I told myself there was no way to have a successful business without idolizing wealth and constant hustle. And then God showed me the truth. I needed to leave behind the way I'd been doing things and just follow Him. In this podcast, you will learn how to build your faith, see God in your business, and renew your mindset. So dust off that Bible, girl, and let's dive in. Hey, did you know that I have a private Facebook group for women just like you? Burnt out Christian entrepreneurs who want to find peace and fully trust in God's provision instead of striving their way to success. I know how hard this is, and I wanted to create a community of women who knew just how you feel. So join my private Facebook group, Making Money with God, at bit.ly/makingmoneywithgod.com, and I will see you there.
There's absolutely no doubt that within the last 4 years, there has been this huge awareness around our nervous system and being in constant fight or flight, and this need to, heal your nervous system, heal from trauma, regulate your nervous system issues, and just this awareness of how all of this nervous system dysregulation has stemmed out to create all these other problems in our mental and physical health. And I think a lot of this came from, I guess I will say I've seen this awareness after going through COVID. I know from myself personally, when we were forced to shut down and stop working, I guess in that time, we did move on to e-commerce, and there was still kind of some work happening. But really, when we were actually literally forced to stop working and everybody was sheltering in place or whatever was going on, it really did just make me I stopped working. It made me stop working. And up until that point, I had been working my tail end off, working like crazy. My days were packed for months at a time on my calendar. I was constantly going in after hours. I was constantly going in on my day off. I was squeezing clients in here and there, left and right. I was just so many of others in the world, and so many of you listening, I was just hustling my butt off and working like crazy. And then here we had to stop working, and it was kind of okay. And COVID was happening and the whole world was falling apart. Everything was a shit show. But besides all of that stress, it was okay, I had to stop working. So now what? And it just gave me a minute to breathe and think and reevaluate. It just was this time where we kind of all had to be still. Even if there were unknowns and things were scary and we just weren't really sure. And maybe scary is a weird word, but just the whole situation was bizarre, and we were all kind of having to wrap our minds around what was happening. But it still created this spot where we had to stop and just be. And then there was this huge movement where everybody suddenly was like, you know what? I'm totally burnt out. I've been working like crazy. I've been going 1,000,000 miles an hour, nonstop for I don't know how many years, and I'm not doing this anymore. And I can speak to the beauty industry, especially looking at aesthetics, hair, lashes, because that's just kind of the world, business wise. I've been in for 20 years, but I definitely saw it in that place where people were like, you know what? I'm not working 12, 14-hour days anymore to get clients in. I'm just not. I'm setting boundaries with my work schedule. I'm not going to come in on my day off when a client was totally negligent. I'm not going to people please everybody all the time anymore because it's literally made me crazy. I'm not going to work my tail off and not charge enough because I'm scared to raise my prices or whatever, which that seems a little off topic, but it just, basically what I'm saying is that it really like restructured the entire industry where people were like, you know what? I'm not working my butt off for no money. I'm not bending over backwards for everybody. Like, I am totally at this point where I'm burnt out and I'm dying and I'm not going to do this anymore. And even if you're not in that type of industry, I think so many people got to that place with their job, and there was just this, how many people quit their 9 to 5s to start an entrepreneurship type position? I mean, just everything shifted and it was really crazy. But I think a good thing that came out of it was that it brought a lot of people to this place where they were like, I'm going to not work at this breakneck speed. So in that whole time period for myself, I mean, you've heard my story of how, even like post-COVID in these last 4 years, I still was striving and doing these things. But I think that it just created this whole awareness that like we are all burnt out. Like there's all this unresolved trauma that for some people that we just didn't stop and take time to deal with because it was just like moving at breakneck speed all the time. So we're not meant to live that way. Our nervous system has told us that. Our nervous systems are all out of whack and crazy and like causing all of these other health problems in our body. And it's because we're not made to live this way. Like God made us in his image. He even rested on the 7th day, people. God even rested. God rested. He's God. He doesn't even have to rest. And it very clearly tells us in Genesis that on the 7th day he rested. Like there is a Sabbath for a reason. Like we have to rest. We have to, you guys. God made us to rest. We have to. Now, of course, in whatever type of job you're called to do, even if you're listening and you're not an entrepreneur, doesn't matter. Whatever you're called to do, even if your job is a stay-at-home mom, that's still a job. Your job is you're retired and you're caring for an elderly parent. That's still your job right now. Whatever our job is in the season, we're still called to do it with excellence and do it well and with integrity. And that does mean hard work because some things might come really easy to you and it's not hard work, but you know what I'm saying. Like we are supposed to do things with excellence, but we can rest. We are supposed to have a Sabbath for a reason. And I don't mean Sabbath in this legalistic way of like Sunday, you can't do this and you can't do that. And it has to be a Sunday and it has to be this and it has to be that. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying God made us to rest. So I feel like when he's talking about green pastures, this is rest. This is where we can feel safe. This is where we can be at peace. And this is where we can rest in the confidence that he is God and he has our life in his hands and he's got it figured out. And we can have a day where we literally, we can have a day and lots of moments in every other day, like lots of time blocks, like we can rest confidently knowing that everything that needs to get done is going to get done. If something didn't get done, it's not a big deal. Like, just rest in the fact that God has it figured out and that he's going to give you the ability to get the things done that need to get done. But there is time for rest and safety and peace. And when our nervous system is in that constant fight or flight, which mine has been for I don't even know how long, it probably still is most of the time, it's because we don't feel safe. And I think that when we are striving and trying to control everything and trying to do everything within our own power, that's just this like control where we think we're going to feel safe. We think we are going to feel safe when we have this control and when we have it all figured out, when we have all the answers, when we have all the blueprints, when we know everything, when we can see everything that's coming down the line, that's what makes us feel safe, or so we think. It's not really what makes us feel safe. What makes us feel safe is just being in that presence of God and having that confidence that he has us safe. And he leads us to green pastures. He leads us to those green pastures. And those pastures are where we're safe. And I want to talk about a couple of scriptures about safety. We're going to look at Psalm 27:5. Psalm 27:5 says, "For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his tabernacle and set me high upon a rock. And Psalm 32:7-8 says, you are my hiding place. You will protect me from trouble and surround me with songs of deliverance. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you and watch over you. Psalm 91:1-4 says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and your rampart. And then just one more, Isaiah 25:4. The first part of it says, you have been a refuge for the poor, a refuge for the needy in his distress, a shelter from the storm and a shade from the heat. And I love that. I mean, I don't know about you, but there's lots of times where I mean, maybe I'm taking this verse way too literal, but there's lots of times where I feel poor and I feel like I need some refuge. And there's lots of times, way more times than I want to admit probably, that I feel kind of needy. And you know, he's a refuge for the needy in his distress. Like, how many times have I felt needy and distressed? Like, so many times. And I mean, I tell you, as a random side note, like, if you are in this season where you're constantly feeling needy and in distress, like, run to God. Like, give your husband a break. Don't run to your husband with your neediness and distress all the time. Give him a break and run to God. Okay, that was maybe weird, but whatever. So, our green pastures is where our shepherd takes us. We cannot manifest perfect, ideal circumstances. We cannot keep thinking, well, when this happens, I'll feel this. I'll feel better when. If only this, I would feel better. I'll feel so much less stressed when I get to this point. Like, we cannot what if or if only or manifest these ideal, perfect circumstances that are going to make us feel safe. That is a false illusion of control. But what we can do is meditate on the word of God, like the scriptures I just read, so they become written on our hearts. And the more we read them and the more we seek God, the more we understand them, and we start to feel that safety and security in Christ and not our circumstances. Looking for safety in our own power, in our own circumstances, is going to fail. I promise you, it's gonna fail. It's not gonna work. And when we think about the shepherd, when we think about like the literal sense of the shepherd shepherding his flock, the sheep don't even look for green pastures or still waters. And I guess maybe people are like, well, it's because they're sheep and they're dumb and they don't even know what to look for. I don't know. Maybe that's true. But really, instead of looking for green pastures or looking for those still waters, they just look to their shepherd because they trust that he's going to guide them there. And a good shepherd does. And I mean, technically, in the sense of an actual shepherd, a good shepherd is going to take his flock to those green pastures and those still waters. He's going to guide them there. He'll take them there. And the sheep know that, and they're not stupid. Animals are very smart. Animals are probably way smarter than most humans. Let's be real here. They know that. Like, they don't even have to worry about it. These sheep don't even have to worry about finding green pastures and waters because they know. They just know. They just look to the shepherd. They don't even have to look for it. So that just makes me think, like, how many times have I frantically been searching for green pastures? Like, how many times in my life, and I mean in the future, I'm sure I'll do it again, how many times am I frantically just searching for that green pasture that I think is going to make me feel better or sustain me or give me what I want or whatever it is? Like, looking for more. Where's the next big thing? Where's the next whatever? Where's more of this, more of this, more of this, more of this, more. Constantly grasping for the next thing that I think I need to have or do that's going to make my circumstance better, when I really just need to look to God and he's going to guide me to the green pasture that I need. So what about you? Like, what do you think? What is that green pasture that you're usually looking for? And maybe it's something different all the time, but do you feel like you are constantly looking for the next thing instead of just looking to God and trusting that He's going to guide you to the next thing that you need? And in those green pastures is where we rest. And we can't rest until we fully surrender. We do not and cannot rest until we fully surrender. So instead of surrendering, what is it that you're clinging to? What are you trying to control? What are you trying to compromise where you're doing it your way and trying to do it God's way both at the same time? Because we know that doesn't work. Compromising doesn't work. Compromise is not surrender. It was a really hard lesson that took me a really long time to learn. We need to stop striving, let go, and rest in the green pastures. And this is another reminder of why we do need self-care. I mean, I think the self-care movement, like, maybe has gotten a little out of control. And of course, like anything else, it can be made an idol. Like, self-care can be made very, very selfish. And I don't know, like, this maybe sounds extreme, but like self-care is almost like a religion now. I mean, we don't need to go over the top with it, but we do need to have some self-care so we can nurture other people. If we're going 1,000 miles an hour all the time, how can we even see what anyone around us needs? How can we see what anyone needs? How can we serve anybody when we ourselves are going 1,000,000 miles a minute all the time, pushing and striving and hustling and controlling and gripping tight to everything that we are doing? We can't even see anybody else. We can't be present with anybody else. Because when we are going so fast all the time, controlling, striving, we're really just in this little bubble that's all about us. We can't even see outside of what we're doing when we're just going balls to the wall all the time. Like, this is a really good example that I thought of when I was writing these notes. The other day, I had a client. It was at the end of my work day, which was really kind of convenient for lots of reasons. But my last client of the day didn't show up to her appointment. And it was really weird. It was very, very unlike her. And come to find out, my booking system restructured and they stopped sending text reminders, which until this happened, I didn't know that. I'm like, weird. Like, again, it just was very unlike her. And she, everyone gets a reminder. And so I messaged her and I was like, hey, are you okay? And she's like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. And she was okay, thankfully, and it was fine. But the point is, in that moment, it was like, okay, well, she's not here yet, whatever. I was like, in the time that I was waiting for her, I used that time to, get some admin work done. And I got some, stuff posted on social media that I needed to post. And I was able to text a couple people back. And then, after a while, I texted her. She was like, I forgot, I'm not coming. And so I got a few other things done in my office, and then I was like, okay, well, now I'm like done with work early. I'm going to head across the street to the bakery and get a loaf of bread. I had time to do that, which I didn't think I was going to have time to do. And then when I got to the bakery, one of my clients was sitting there waiting for an order to go. And she's a client, but I mean, she's a friend. She's been my client for, literally probably over 10 years. And so, I consider her a friend, even though she's a client. And so she was there and I hadn't seen her for a few months. And so it was nice to be able to sit and catch up with her for a few minutes while we were both there waiting for our stuff. And she is just going through just a lot in her life right now. And I'm like, I was just thinking about you. And she was like, I was just thinking about you too. And she's like, I've just been so busy. I haven't been able to come in. And she was just telling me, like, she was just filling me in on all these things that she'd been going through with her family for the last couple of months. And it was just big, big stuff. And I was so grateful. I was so grateful that I ran into her. I was so grateful that I could just sit there and listen. I just needed to sit there and listen to her. She just needed someone to talk to. She just needed to vent. She just, and at the end of our conversation, she was like, oh my gosh, you have a podcast and you have this going on. And she's like, I didn't even get to ask you. I just dumped all my stuff on you. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm like, my stuff's great. I'm glad we could talk about your stuff. Like, it didn't matter. I just was so grateful that I could just literally be present and sit there and listen to her. I literally could sit there and listen to her just vent whatever she needed to vent. I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't watching the clock. I wasn't texting. I wasn't. And I guess like the big thing for me was before I could just let everything go and feel safer and more confident and secure with God, with His sovereignty over my business and my day and my schedule. And that sounds so dramatic, but it's like instead of before in like my former self, instead of just trusting God and not worrying about every little detail all the time, I would have been, first of all, I would have been irritated that my client didn't show up. Like I would have been irritated, maybe not at her, but just in general. I would have been ticked off that she missed her appointment. I would have been panicking that she missed her appointment because where the heck was I going to reschedule her? Now I'm going to have to come in on my day off. Now I'm going to have to stay late. Now I'm going to have to readjust everything. I would have been panicking about the money. I would have been freaking out about not making that money that day. And how am I going to pay this bill? Or how am I going to do this? Or I really wanted this money for that. Or now if I can't get her in for a month, I'm not going to make that money for a whole nother month. And then it just would have ruined my day. Honestly, it would have just ruined my afternoon. The old Beth would have just had a shitty attitude, and it would have ruined my day. And for no reason. And I probably wouldn't have even stopped at the bakery, or maybe I would have, but maybe I still would have been in a crappy mood to where I just ended up blurting out all of my stuff onto my client instead of her talking to me and me just listening. I mean, I don't know. We don't need to sit here and what if everything. But my point is I know the old me, it just would have all fallen out completely differently. But this time when my client didn't show up, I just was genuinely worried about her. Instead of being inconvenienced and irritated, I was worried about her. She was fine. Okay, great. Like I was grateful that I could sit and get some admin work done. I was grateful that I had time to stop at the bakery and get a loaf of delicious sourdough. I was grateful that I ran into my client and had a few minutes to literally sit there and catch up with her. Because when does that ever happen? In the life of busy momness, when do you ever get to sit and catch up with somebody even for 5 minutes? Like myself and my two besties, we struggle to find a time to go to dinner. Like it's impossible for us to even find a time to go have dinner. It's ridiculous. So I was grateful to be able to sit and have a minute with my client and catch up with her. And then I just went home and enjoyed the rest of my afternoon. Like I didn't even think about the money. I rescheduled my client, and I did have to reschedule her a month out because I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks. I'm going to be off for a couple weeks. And with scheduling, I didn't stay late. I didn't book her on my day off. I didn't. I just booked her in the next time I had an appointment, and she's totally cool with that. She doesn't expect me to stay late. She doesn't expect me to come in on my day off. She missed her appointment. She's totally fine with coming in a month. Like, it's a facial. Like, this is nothing in our lives is upending because a facial appointment's missed and you're coming in a month. Like, it's fine. But the old me would have just had a totally different outlook on it. But just trusting God just changes everything in the perspective. It just changes everything. It changed that entire situation for me and for my client. And who knows, maybe the old me would have texted something passive aggressive to my client and then made her feel really bad about missing her appointment. And there's no reason for that. It's life is life. She forgot. Whatever. We rescheduled her. Life goes on. But the old me would have been such a stickler about the policies. And I would have been like, well, I'm charging you for half your appointment today because you missed it and you no-showed and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to do that. The old me would have done that, or the old me would have wanted to do it and then not did it and then been resentful. But you guys, when you just trust that God's got stuff figured out, you don't have to worry about every little detail. And you can just have grace for yourself and for other people. That's rest. Oh my gosh. Having grace for yourself and for other people, that is rest. Like, that's amazing. That's a huge load off your shoulders. Like, having grace for somebody else is rest for them. You know, I've had some clients in my life, in my years of business, that I don't know what it is, but sometimes I just get the impression that they don't get grace from anybody in their life. And maybe I'm totally assuming that, but it's like, sometimes, I don't know, I just feel like, you know, if it's a situation like where they miss an appointment or they have to reschedule at the last minute and they're like, I'm so sorry, I'm this and this, you know, you're just, I don't know, just the way they interact in those situations, like, you just can kind of tell, like, they're overly apologetic, and it's just like, I just always get this feeling like I just don't think they get grace from anybody in their life. So I'm happy to extend them grace, but there's definitely a part of me that doesn't come naturally to me. I guess that's what I'm saying. It is literally by the grace of God that I can extend grace to anybody else, because that is not natural for me. So anyway, getting a little off topic here. We're going to move into the still waters. He leads us to still waters. And something that really came forth in my brain was be still and know that I am God. And I know these are two different verses, but be still. Like, be still and know that I am God. We are to be still. Be quiet, chill out, calm down, and know that He is God. Like, in these moments where our feathers kind of want to get ruffled because our client didn't show up or whatever, be still, be quiet, chill out, know that He is God. Surrender that situation at His feet. Back to Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. Know that He is God. He is God, not you. You're not. You can't control the situation. You don't need to control the situation. You're not supposed to. You don't have to. You're not supposed to be God. You don't have to be God. And what a relief. What a relief, you guys. We spend so much time trying to control everything because we think it'll make us feel safe. But the relief is that we don't, because we're not God. And that's the real freedom. Surrendering is real freedom. Here's your permission slip to slow down, be still, be quiet, chill out. You don't have to know, do, fix, control, and be everything. That is not your job. That is not my job. It's not anybody's job. It's God's job. That's it. And when it comes to the waters, He is living water. He is living water. He is what quenches our thirst. Not money, not a big house, not a huge Instagram following, not a million likes, not 1,000 comments of validation about whatever it was we posted. He quenches our thirst. He alone. He is our refreshment. When you've been wandering in the desert for what feels like 40 years and you look around and you don't even know how you've gotten there and you're just like done, He is there. When you are thirsty, He is there for you. When you're at the end of the rope and you need to be refreshed, when you need that self-care, when you need to be nourished. I mean, yes, we do need to have some self-care in our life, but when you're totally at the end of your rope, Jesus is there. He is the answer. He's going to refresh your thirst. He will quench your thirst forever. He's going to quench that thirst that you have for more. He'll renew your mindset. He's going to realign your heart. Nothing else is going to do that. Nothing else is going to quench your thirst for the thing that you think you want more of. And God's word, being in His presence, relationship with Him, the Holy Spirit, all those things are what is going to refresh you. Not online shopping, not a bottle of wine, not binging Netflix. None of those things are going to help. I mean, they might help. You know, they're going to give you that dopamine hit for like a good 10 minutes. And then you're just right back to where you started. Like, God's refreshment is constant, everlasting, unexhaustible, like never ending. He will quench your thirst for whatever it is you are wanting forever. And He's the only thing that will do that forever. Okay, we're going to rest in green pastures. We're going to be still and know that He is God and that we are not. And we're just going to keep following that shepherd because He will take you to those green pastures and that water. He will take you there. We don't need to be beaten down our own path and our own strength and our own power uphill, like in all of our might through blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, let's be real. When we follow Him, there's still some blood, sweat, and tears, but it's different. You know, it's different. Just look to the shepherd and follow Him. You don't even need to find green pastures and still waters. He's going to take you there. So I hope that resonated with you today. If you are in our Facebook group, please go in there and tell me what you think of this episode. I love going through Psalm 23. It will forever be etched in my heart. I love it so much. And I hope when we get through this Psalm 23 series, I guess I'll call it, in the podcast, I hope that you love it too. If you do, please post it in the Facebook group, Making Money with God. Find us in there. We would love to have you. And I hope that this message blessed you today.
Hey friend, I hope you loved today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts so I know the show blessed you? And please share this episode with a boss babe you know who may need to stop hustling and seek God first. Okay, girl, I will meet you back here in a couple days. And until then, stop striving and start seeking, because God has the promised land waiting and ready for you.